How you guys doing? My name's Donnie Baltazar. I'm a black belt in Rodrigo Maderas here in sunny San Diego, Trinidad Pacific Beach Fight Center. Today we're going to be going over side control fundamentals. So at a very basic stage from day one, a way of looking at side control, the principles, guidelines, and some of the basic things you need to master before you start getting into the more intermediate advanced segments. So now that we picked off that main part, the second I get past my opponent's knees, we need to start establishing control of the body, right? And here's the whole thing. I did a lot of work to get to where I'm at, and I don't want to go backwards, right? In all terms, depending on how fast we go, which is always going to be a lot of factors on us getting to an end goal objective. In general, in jiu-jitsu, our end goal objective is to get to the submission, right? There's a lot of little signposts along that way, and your ability to navigate depends on my ability, contrary to that other guy's ability. There's a lot of factors here. But one of the main parts is if any destination we're going, you don't want to go backwards on the road to go back, right? So make sure you have all the baggage inside the car before you guys take off. You don't have to go back because you left the iron on. And that's really what we're looking at here. So when I get past my knees, I want to make sure I don't allow him to get his knees back across and get a recomposition. So from that, there's a very simple way of looking at this, and I call it a 5-point game, right? We define the 5 points on the body, and we always know how much control we have over the other guy's body. Before we say how to win a game, let me identify the points of the body. So, first point is the near side hip, number 1. Number 2, the near side armpit. Number 3, the far side armpit. Number 4, the head. And number 5, center of his chest. Okay. Now, before I start to give you some of the more names, the nomenclatures of all the different ways and configurations, understand that this is the basic principle. I must address and win this game of 5. And this is how easy it is on the fundamental conceptual level, is on a game of 5 right now, see how I have no control over his body. The score is 0 to 5. So he could just move anywhere and recompose guard. Nothing's stopping him, okay? What I want to do, like any other game, whoever has 3 or more has control or has freedom from this position, all right? So watch me do one of the most simple basic, which is called the head and arm control, which allow me to win all 5 points of the body. I'll take one knee and put it against point 1 on his hip. I take my second knee and put it inside his armpit. I take my far side arm going underneath his armpit. I have my chest connected to his sternum, a little bit towards the middle or more towards my back, but either way I'm making contact, chest to chest. And you watch my right hand making that cross face. Has a little extra bonus. Sometimes you can connect your hands just to make sure you don't lose these contacts. At this point, this is probably one of the most basically dominant positions from side control. I am winning the game 5-0. You understand? Now, at any given time, I could still be winning this side control, right? If I take this hand out and this hand's free to control, I'm winning the game 4-1 because he has one of these points loose. Let's say I detach my chest from his body. Well, at this point, I'm still winning the game 3-2. But if you've done any kind of jiu-jitsu, you can see how he can start to fight and free one of these things. He may push me away, he may turn, and at second, you saw how he moved his hip away, which means he has more of that freedom. For me to battle back into this position, I get back controls. You see I have the cross face, the chest, and the hip gives me back at 3-2. Cool? Now, before we go into all the nomenclatures of all the different configurations, just know that at any given time, you can know where you're at. In a scramble or as we start to push, you must dominate at least 3 of these points of control if you're hoping to keep the person still. Now that we've moved past, right, some of the concepts of what it means to control our partner, now let's start looking at the ways that we can control them. Now, in Jiu-Jitsu, if you look at this, these are the nodes or the actual, if we're using the car analogy, these are the gas stations or rest stops along your way to your final journey, okay? And they should be treated as such. When you have control of another person, that's your time to breathe. When you're moving, that's when it's gonna take that a little bit more athleticism, right? But you can find rest, relaxation, time to think from points of control, right? So from that basic stance, we've already gone over, but if you're watching, we go from that near side hip, that near side elbow, far side elbow, chest connection, cross hand with a gable grip on top. And we'll talk about that in just a second. This position is called the head and arm control, right? Now, this is how it conceptually looks. Now, let's tighten it up to talk about the details of the head and arm control. Obviously, we're looking for all 5 of those, but what we're going to be looking for is to make sure that this is the most shut down position possible. And for us to do that, a lot of it is going to depend on me shutting down what our partner is going to need to get out of this position. And one of his biggest tools for doing this are going to be his hands, right? Because the strongest things on his body have already been bypassed and are isolated on that side of his body by our far knee. So his options are to get his elbows and his hands into the fight to separate these 4 points of control enough that he can move himself away. I want to deny him that. So before we get into a little bit of that, we got to make that pause, because there's the huge concept of how do you control someone's torso? How do you control the upper parts of their body? And it's very simple, and it's something that you just got to concentrate on. Your ability to get behind past the 2 inches past anyone's elbow is the point of control where they lose most of the ability to articulate their arm and use strength. That tricep control, okay? Now, when I say that, there's a difference. Watch me with no tricep control, even though I have a head and arm control, it's gonna look like this. See his left triceps on the ground, his right triceps kind of free. And if he starts to try to push or dribble away, saw how he was able to gauge his arm. He's gonna pull it back, because this motion is a basic motion that you see, whether it's a bench press or if you invert him, it's a push-up. I'm gonna deny him that opportunity. First, when I slide to head and arm control, I take his back of his elbow and I slide my knee behind it. So now his triceps rest inside the crook of my body. When I go through to kind of prevent this area, I slide my elbow inside my knee. Very critical detail. Second, I slide my head into the gap, but I don't just have my arm, as you see here, and rotate my partner. I don't just have my arm on the outside of the shoulder. I pull his tricep up. Now, how am I doing that? It's because if his hand's here and I walk my fingers, you see how his tricep falls on my actual forearm. It's not here where he has a little bit of room. I walk and it isolates. So now, if I ask my partner to move, life got a lot harder for him. Not because I was squeezing him harder, it's because I was denying his ability to use strength, which is the perfect part about jiu-jitsu, right? It's not about how strong I can get. It's how weak I can make my opponent. It's an interesting way of looking, but anybody can do it. So let's look at that again from the top. Using that concept of controlling his triceps, which I will use, we got to keep inside of mind because they will be the key to allowing me to transition to all these points of control. So once again, head and arm control from side control. I'm coming in, first point in the knee, lifting up his triceps, sliding it underneath onto my thigh. My right elbow coming inside my knee. I'm blocking his chin with my right shoulder, my left hand, not just connecting here, but actually walking his elbow out, compromising that angle. I'm going to keep my head down. And this is a higher level version of head and arm control from side control. So from this position, the most common thing that you will run into, that you'll just be forced into, is actually going to knee on belly. Okay? So from these positions, I do want to get down here to get control, but sometimes I get separated when I'm going for this and my partner starts to push and I start to go away. I still have to win this game. And I want to win the game of the best for 5, right? I need my 3 out of 2. So when I come up, a perfect knee on belly is not just having that knee on that belly, but also having a control over his body. Do you understand? Now, from here, you're going to start to notice that there's a lot of room, right? We don't have control of the back of these triceps, not directly, but we do win the game of 5. And see if you can count them before I count them out for you. And this is where they're at. My near side foot is blocking that hip, which we've identified has the most important point of all of these. My shin is not just coming across his waist, but I'm pointing my knee to kind of make connection to that chest point. Now, you can put a little bit more pressure on people, but understand that the point of you putting more weight distribution on somebody is so you can limit their movement, right? But some of that is at the expense of the more weight you put into somebody, the less mobile you are, right? So you're really gonna have to play with your range where you can stay connected to the person enough that it causes them not to be able to move. Now, at this moment, I only have 2 points. So I have to find a way to get that at least one more point. And our way to do that is pulling up on this sleeve. I make a little cuff with my hands in here, and I keep his elbow from touching the ground, right? i.e., I'm incidentally controlling the back of his tricep. His tricep can't turn to the ground. It's hard for him to turn into me. Try to move around. So I'm pulling up on this, and you notice how in order to stay contacted, I lift my hips in the air. I'm not pulling myself down with anything. It's just the more my hips come off, the more my weight transfers from the back of my knees back onto my hip. And it gets silly. So you could go all the way up, right? But that's not really necessary, okay? You just want to maintain these 3. This is gonna be a way more mobile position, okay? And transitioning between the 2 positions looks exactly the same, okay? So I'm going from these positions, and the easiest way to always maintain control of my partner. So let's talk about what that's not. What that's not is this. What was the problem? The problem was, for little split seconds of time, however long that took, I lost control of his body in transition. So watch me. We're gonna start in that knee on belly control. My foot's blocking the inside hip. Next, my knee is pointed more towards the sternum so I can get that check to pin him to the ground. Third, I'm making a cuff here. I'm pulling up, incidentally controlling the back of his tricep and the inside arm. Now, I can swing my hand underneath the armpit, right? Especially if I find that he keeps his hand on the outside. Now, from here, the score just went to 4-0. Watch. My right knee touches the ground, and now I haven't lost anything, right? So it's 4-1. Now, my right hand can go to his head. I block. So now I have an official from this position, a 5-0 position. Looks weird, right? But let's prove it. Move around a little bit. It's a tough position to get through, right? Now, it looks unconventional, but on that way, I'm in such a position now at this, what I would say is a modified knee on belly position, that you'll see this used, and we will use it in more advanced motions. I can use this ability, we're gonna bookmark it. I can mount from here. I can attack this far arm from here. I can attack this near side arm from here. I can use my gi against him. I can use his gi against him. And look at it. It looks weird, but I have the maximum amount of control. Now that I have this 5-0, I can slide my shin off of his belt so I can settle my body down. And we're back inside that good head and arm control. We just now went over the fundamental positions of how to control from side control. We have some other positions that we have to go over so you can start to understand them, right? And we're all gonna condition these off of that primary, the cream of the crop of that head and arm control, which gives me all 5. So now we're gonna transition to something called Kesa Gatame, right? So from here, I'm, just like everything, when I was transitioning to that knee on belly, we want to keep in mind that I want to maintain winning the 5-point game as I get to every new position. So watch what I do here. I'm going to reach back with my right hand and secure the back of his tricep. What's the score? If you're saying score's 4 my way to his 1, you're correct, right? I have the chest, I have the far side arm, I have the near side arm, I have the near side hip. I'm just missing that chin, but I still have control of this position. Watch. I pick my leg off the ground and watch that I really concentrate on that sacrificing a point of control. My chest is still connected because I don't want to go to a score of 3-2, right? I stay at that 4-1 and watch, pointing my toes towards the top of the mat, towards the same direction. If I use my partner's head has the 12 o'clock of this clock, if my toes are pointing towards the 12 o'clock, it allows me to slide my shin and my knee across the ground until I land into this position. It's a Kesa Gatame. So when we count out this position, you'll notice that I have control of the near side armpit, control of his chest, and I have control of his armpit. Now, at a minimum, this is what you'll start to see has a way of controlling. But let's look at what some of the potential struggle from this position would look like. If I get my partner to kind of move around here, notice that's the first thing that comes across, right? So his hand's gonna definitely come across this area, right? Because what is his whole point? So I have his elbow and his knee. So those principles that we were talking about, controlling that tricep and controlling that angle of the elbow, I'm not really doing right now, right? Let's improve that. So I could take this and move my body. So instead of staying perfectly perpendicular with my partner, I twist my body while keeping his body still. So watch, see how my toe, and we'll use this right now as a position. If you're looking at my toe going towards the 12 o'clock, if I rotate my body more towards 2, right? 1 o'clock, 2, maybe about 1, right? Now, when I ask my partner to move around, things just got a little bit harder for him, right? And it's just a slight adjustment. So you're going to run into this a lot in jiu-jitsu, that what it looks like from the outside and what it feels like to the inside are sometimes different, right? The higher level your jiu-jitsu should look the same as everybody else's. It should just feel different to the person that's witnessing it. Now, so we've adjusted from here to turning our body, but could I get a little bit more out of this position? Now, let's take what we're looking at here. When we have this high Kesa Gatame here, the gift is I'm letting him have his head and he has his hips. So I know he can turn towards me, right? Because I can't control his head, right? So we had that, and he can move his knees. So we know he's gonna roll towards me, roll. Yes, but what does that offer me? Well, it does offer me this chance to move behind his back, which we're not gonna get into this series, but I want you to be aware that that's gonna give me great opportunities to move around and attack that arm. I can Kimura that arm. I can do move to the back. This angle wasn't possible before. It definitely isn't possible for me to get behind his back while maintaining this control. Do you understand? Because I've given him no space. There's no gift. If I don't give him a gift, he won't give me the gift of opportunity. Do you understand? On the second control, when I move my hips back and I control his hips for a little bit more, we have to take in the risk. It's hard for me to get this chest-to-chest contact. It's hard for me to control his head. And what we're gonna deal with is the possibility of a stronger guy trying to push against you. And he's gonna push in and he's gonna be able to turn. You see how he starts to frame? Now, I can use this versus my partner. Once again, we will get into these submissions, but they're not for right now. But watch, as he pushes, he's at a weird angle that allows me to switch my body behind, and I'm behind his shoulder, and a lot of amazing things can happen for me, probably not for him, right? But I'm in a position. Cool? All right, so now that we've gone over those other 3 fundamental controls from the side, we did that head and arm side control, we did knee on belly, we did that Kesa Gatame. We're gonna add this next part before we start to chain them all together. Super intense. And it's just the option that has to happen. We call it north-south, right? It's basically his head's facing north, my head's facing south. Now the challenge with this is maintaining the winning points of control of his body as we do so. Now, from a north-south position, I'm gonna be looking down towards his knees, right? But I wanna be able to control all these points so he can't recompose. So when I'm coming inside of his body here, I'm controlling his hips. I'm using my elbow to block the inside of his armpits. It looks like this. I'm doing a mirror thing on the left side, so it's a mirror image. The next part that I can do is use my knees to pinch his head. So when we're going out that part, if he can't turn his head, then it's hard for him to roll. So if I had perfect control of his body from north-south, it'd be here. That final part of my chest making chest contact. So now when my partner tries to move, it's hard, right? Now you're gonna see a lot of that ability for him to lift his hips up, but it's hard for him to turn his hips over, right? Nothing very meaningful. Move around. And I just maintain a nice control. Now, so let's try to move in that. So you saw the basic positioning of my body, but are we addressing those other little small concepts that we talked about? Namely, that control of the outside tricep, the compromise of this elbow angle to get above, and one kind of gave it away with keeping his chin towards the air as we go through, right? Is there any way that we can do that? And yes, we can. So as I squeeze through, I can pull my partner's back. Instead of just having my, bring your elbows down, instead of just having him in here so he can actually bench press me, right? So if he had like a little bit of, I give him a little bit of angle, I can give him this. Kind of don't want that, right? So what happens if I walk, watch how I flare my elbows along the side and make good control, and I do a bench press if you can. Yeah, it's kind of tough, right? And you can even try it at home. Don't try it with too much weights, but if you try to do bench presses with your elbows like this, you're not gonna get a lot. You can't recruit the muscles that are necessary. Watch how I did that. I slid my elbows in and I slid them backwards and flared the elbow out. I'm actually sliding it down and flaring the elbow back. Watch. His elbows are past the plane. I'm keeping the chest down. I can even listen to him. And it's a good point to kind of make here. As we do our jujitsu needs to be able to adapt to all situations, right? A good fundamental understanding of jujitsu should work with a gi, without a gi, and versus a unconventionally violent opponent, right? That little third area will cover you in things such as MMA or possible self-defense violent situations, you understand? So from that third perspective, when we go down here, you do need to be aware that a non-conventionally resistant opponent is not going to try to use jiu-jitsu against you. He's going to try to use strengths. And part of the issue of having your face up is if he moves his knees in, you can catch strikes to your face. So by putting my ear to his chest while I'm maintaining this control allows me to protect any contact against my face. As he tries to knee up, I won't get incidentally caught with this and I keep my head down. So I'm going to show you that from that basic position, this head and arm control, I'm going to be moving around my partner to pin him. This whole point of this is to dominate all 5 points of control as much as possible throughout this drill, and at no time lose, i.e. dropping my score below 3. That's the easiest way of looking at that. So we're going to transition from a head and arm control on this side to a Kesa Gatame, to a north-south, to a Kesa Gatame on that side, to a head and arm control. And I'm going to show you 3 different levels of doing this, right? So as we start to get control of our body, then we want to get a little bit more control of our opponent as we do it, right? So let's start level 1. If I get my partner to cross his arms around his body, right? And we're just doing this for that demonstration so I can understand the motions behind this drill. Watch me. I have head and arm control. I lift my foot up and I slide my knee down, and I'm now in Kesa Gatame. From here, I'm going to step my knee across to the other side of his ear, and I'm going to swim my hips across to north-south. From that north-south, I'm going to take this far side elbow, touch it to the outside of his hip, and step back into a Kesa Gatame. From here, I'm going to slide my knee back alongside of his body into the hip, get that cross face, pulling my knee back towards this shoulder, and get to that head and arm control. Nice. Now, I work to do it again on the other side. I step through to get head and arm control. Keep this tight in. I step over the top, pull that elbow. If you notice that my right side elbow is on this side of his body, now it moves to this side. Now I take this elbow, put it in that hip, stepping back to a Kesa Gatame, and then I slide this knee back all the way back to his hip, my arm coming across for the cross side, and my knee coming to the shoulder, like so. The magic with that drill, if I get my partner to kind of sit back for me, come on 2 knees right here. I can do this without anybody inside the room. Watch me as I have my imaginary partner. I slide to Kesa Gatame. I go north-south. I step back, Kesa Gatame, back to side control. Knee up, slide to Kesa Gatame, over to north-south, back to Kesa Gatame, back to north-south. And you can drill that during commercial breaks. I know Netflix doesn't have that anymore, but you do what you gotta do, right? So let's go to the second part of this drill, or the second level of this drill. Now, we want to maintain the control of those points as we go. This is a little bit more difficult because you're going to have to maintain control of these triceps and direct in my partner as we go. Okay? It's going to look like this. So from here, I'm going to make sure his arm's on the outside of my body, on both sides, right? So it's up here on the outside. I'm blocking. I got those good controls I was looking for. My head's down. I'm gonna reach back and control this tricep as I open up my leg and I slide my knee underneath that tricep, keeping my head down. Notice how I still have control of this tricep. It's gonna be important for me to make this transition. The hardest part about this drill is making it from this side to the mirror image on the other side, right? So let's look at the complexities. First, because his tricep is connected to my hip, when I step over, his arms are gonna cross, okay? I'm gonna show you from this angle, and I'm gonna show you from a perpendicular angle so you can see it. So as I step over, watch, I'm lifting my hips, I'm keeping his tricep through, and still underneath my body, and it goes, my knees down to the ground. Watch me do it again. I'm picking his tricep up, and I'm going towards the ground. Cool. Now, let's look at this from the perpendicular mark so you can see what I do with this arm. As I was crossing his arm that way, I'm pulling his elbow across his body this way. So watch. I hold it open, I step, and my hand catches his tricep. So if you're able to see, I have a hand on this tricep, and my body is blocking his tricep here. So if I was away, his hands are crossing the air. Good. Watch me do it again. Now, from here, I'm gonna step back and clear his hand as I go to the Kesa Gatame. Remember, my elbow goes to the other side of his body. We're gonna show it from both angles. So it's gonna look like this. One, and I clear his hand behind. I grip the tricep and my arms underneath. Knees up for base. Good. Watch me do it again from there. No. We can do it from head that way. Cool. So, watch me. I'm gonna do into the north-south. And as I step back, my right hand goes over. Watch me clear his hand. My hand goes down to the tricep and go through. That little crystal ball motion is key to this, right? Key to get into this position. Now, when I want to maneuver back to the head and arm side control, I'm going to lift up on this tricep by picking my butt off the ground. I'm pushing off the ground. I slide my knee down the length of his body into his hip. I slide my knee underneath. I slide in. I connect. And there we are at the head and arm control. Watch that from second angle here.
Nice.
So that is that second level of the side control drills. I have the knee on belly here. The easiest way to make this, just for the movement principles, is I'm going to cross to the other side knee on belly. I'm going to do that by making my knees light by putting my hands on the ground. Okay. In real time and on a real drill, right, if you're doing live sparring, you can put them on your partner to kind of transition that control, right? It kind of helps pin his head down to the ground, kind of get in around about 3 points of control as we go. But right now we're just really worried about the transition of movement, okay? So I'm gonna put my hands on the ground and I'm gonna put my knees, both my knees together, and window wiper my feet. It's gonna look like this. Switch to one side. Watch me do it one more time. So what you're noticing is you'll see me put my knees together and kick off. Put my knees together and kick off. Good. Now, that second motion is what we call reverse knee on belly. If this is a forward knee on belly, the reverse knee on belly is just me looking the other way. Watch. I put my hands on. You're going to see this is a common theme because it allows me to steady myself and wait for me to redistribute my weight. I put my knee down, I kick out. Cool. Reverse knee on belly. Hands down, I open back up. Watch me do it again. Together. Out. Hands. Back. Very easy. That third is a spin and control, right? So without my partner moving, right? Without my partner moving, I'm simply going to stand up. I'm gonna step all the way around my partner, put my foot into control. See how my shin came down on top? I kick my foot back and my hands are back down. Watch me do it again. I use my hands to help me stand up. I kick my foot around, knee in, foot out. Cool. Now I can use all those three, right? Now that we have this together, let's go to the level 2 of those movements. Just put them both together. So I'm gonna go side. I'm gonna go from this side to reverse, back in, switch sides, reverse, back, spin. Watch. Hands down, reverse, hands down, back, hands down, cross, hands down, reverse, hands down, back, hands down, stand, spin, back. Great. Let's try it one more time. Hands down, reverse, hands down, straight, hands down, knees together, back across, here, hands down, knee out, hands down here, hands down, I stand up, foot kicks around, shin, kick back, knee on belly. Great. So, now that we got to that level 2, we played out a little bit. Now I want to do it like we're saying. I need some stimulus. So can I do those motions with control? So I'm gonna use that same motion, but the control I'm looking for is on these first parts, I get control of my partner's hands to keep him from pushing away from me, and I'm going to switch to that knee on belly. So I'm here, I press to knee on belly, and I switch my hands to control his arms. Watch me do it again. To go backwards, my hands are controlling, I switch my hands and I control. Do you understand? Now, I'm gonna switch to the other side of his body by controlling his hands. I put my knees together, I switch over, I'm still controlling his hands inside a position. Watch me do it back the other way. Here. Now, at some point, my partner may be able to get this hand off of my body and push at that knee. Cool? So, if he were to push on that knee, I push, I can go to the out. He pushes, I go right back. Here, I push. Nice. Now, the next part is, as he was pushing, if I can get my hand underneath it allows me to open him up. So as he pushes, I rotate his elbow up, I spin, back down, controlling his hands. He pushes, I spin, over, down. He can push, and I can turn. He can push, I can turn. He can push, and I can go all the way around. I can grab his hands, so he pushed, I slid it across, I can go right back to the other side of his body and let him play. Good. They're great movements to go back and forth. You want to learn how to transition between all those positions. Watch me combine level 2, both level 1s, and then combine both level 2s. Ways for you to go through. Okay? So without his hands being involved, I'm going to go from low movement to high movement with no kind of obstruction from him. Cool? I'm just using my partner to kind of learn how to stay connected with a body. Good. Watch what I do. We're going to do the head and arm control switch drills. Hopefully you reviewed it. So we get back to this position. Now when I'm on this side of his body, to pop up to knee on belly, I put my hand on his shoulder, hand on his hip. I kind of pop up into position, and I'm here. And I'm gonna work this side of his body by going 1, 2, hands back down, hands back down, crossing the face, sliding back down with the head and arm control, and working my way back to the other side of his body. Nice. So that may take you some time to get down because it takes a little coordination. It's not about the speed, it's about fluidity, right? Watch me do it one time, super fluid, and then we'll talk about that second level of this, the culminating drill, if you will. So watch. Kesa Gatame. North-south. Kesa Gatame. Side control. Popping up, knee on belly. Reverse knee on belly. Knee on belly. Hands down. Cross. Hands down. Cross. Melting back down. Side control. Kick out to Kesa Gatame. Over the top. North-south. Kesa Gatame. Side control. It could be fun. Could be a good workout too. So now let's talk about doing that with perfect controls, right? With your partner's interactions. So you're both gonna have to be at a level where you both understand the drill, and my partner's gonna give me what I need when I need it, right? So he's kind of feeding me the reactions that I need. When we're low, I'm gonna have control of these arms. So we're gonna do the perfect control transitions here. So let's get to the other side first. I'm gonna go grabbing out, kicking, I'm crossing his hands, I'm stepping back, I'm going through, I'm picking up, I'm going back under, my hands are here. Now, when I'm transitioning to that knee on belly, you remember how we did that before when we were talking about those drills? When I slid my knee inside, my chest was down, and I'm reaching back, grabbing that tricep, and opening back up. See how everything kind of changed together. Now, if he starts to pull his hand back and starts to push, I go back, I'm controlling his hands. He can let him loose. He pulls back. I'm gonna pull back on his hand or control his hands. Transition to the other side. Transition to the other side. I'm gonna open up his hand like we did before, right? I'm pulling this up. I'm digging my hand underneath. I'm sliding my knee down to the ground, hand across, knee slides down. I walk myself to the other side. Nice. So that one is tough, right? Trying to maintain control of your body while you're a partner, while you're trying to maintain control of yourself. That is the life of the white belt, right? It's how you put the stripes on. You gotta learn how to control yourself, or you're never gonna be able to control your partner, right? And we have to get better at doing both at the same time. Watch you do that drill a little bit more fluidly. Nice. So that might take some time to get through. Don't be in a hurry. Work on each drill, work on each movement. Understand the results of training these will have effects on your training. Don't get confused that a drill is the actual combative application of all these motions. Okay? It's going to be, the motions are applicable, but when will they be applicable is variable. What these drills are designed is, once again, give you control of your body, help you maintain control of your partner, and try to figure out how to do both of those at the same time. Awesome. Good luck. Okay, guys, so this is the conclusion of, and the culminating part for us to collect all those principles that we were talking about, all the principles and concepts that we used to get the control over the side control. Okay, so we talked about them all, and I have introduced the point of conceptual precedence, which we're going to do right now, right? So everything we did today, right? You can go drill back the physical points, drill down the steps, but the points that you need to have written down and in these order, because it's the order that I presented them, is basically the most important parts. So the most important part about side control is making sure that the guy does a repose guard, right? So how did we define that? I get past his guard by moving my two knees past his two knees. First concept. Remain past his guard. Whatever else happens, we can look like a cartoon flipping around. I will do my best to never let his knees get past my knees. We introduced that second concept of the points of control of his body that I'm going to try to maintain regardless of the configuration of my body to do that. Those 5 points are that near side hip, his chest, near side armpit, far side armpit, and control of his head. Now, when we drill down into those 5, right, going off that concept of conceptual precedence, the most important of those 5 to keep from going back in front of his knees is going to be his near side hip. It's not his far side hip, right? Always his near side hip, right? That's the one he's going to be trying to turn into you to recompose guard. Just to make sure we understand that you lose nothing from the far side hip as far as him recomposing. What could happen is a possibility of him rolling away from you, but that leads us into a position of control that we're still in, right? That will lead to the turtle for later tutorials as you start to peruse the site. Now, as I get these 5 points of control, I have to think about, I must win the best of the 5, which I need at least 3 at all times. Okay, so we used 4 different configurations and all of these, which was the head and arm control, the knee on belly, the Kesa Gatame, and the north-south. Now, when we were talking about these controls and positions, we want to make sure that we always understand at the fundamental level that the reason why we have to do this before we start concentrating on all the cool submissions, the arm bars, the Americanas, the Kimuras, the lapel chips, which we're going to go into, is that it is always position before submission. You have to have control of the other guy before you can get to what you want. Now, at higher levels, that's going to translate into having control of how we move, but that takes a little bit more body awareness and a lot more connection and understanding of how we play this game. At a basic level, if you want to just be able to slow this game down so we can make it past our OODA loop, which was our orient, observe, decision, action, I can give myself more time by exerting more control over my partner, right? Because even if he has oriented, observed, and decided what he's going to do, by my control, I've lengthened the amount of time it takes him to complete the action for it. That can make up for my lower lack of understanding of the position that we're in, or number two, maybe a deficit in any other reason why he's going so much faster on the orient of observation and decisions, right? It could be from athleticism, youth, just skill level, right? Sometimes guys are just really good. Make them not as good. We talked about that mirrored concept when I'm telling you that submissions are a gift. When that submission is a gift, it goes both ways. That I can't just take things from him without having a superiority of strength. Is really where that goes from. But if I allow him the space to move, he could offer me the things that I need to submit him. You understand? And that's where combining everything back into that circle of precedence, that I have to thoroughly understand these 5 points of control. There's a great reason to go all the way down to 3-2 control, because I'm looking for him to use the other two things that I'm not controlling to maybe allow me to get access towards submission or transition into the mount, which we shall do in later points, get into his back, get into more dominant positions so I can exert more control and have more freedom to submit him. It's super important as we get here, right? And at those closing parts, as you start to review these drills, you have to understand the concept and really bring this home. How do we drill and when do we drill? Number one, let's answer the question of when do we drill? When do we drill? We drill once we understand the options, right? So when we understand the concepts of a position, the only thing left for you to do now is to go practice. Do you understand? So how do I recognize that? When do I drill? Is when I have no idea. Somebody says something or I see something and I have no idea what that was, right? I go get the instructional. I go ask my professor. I go to BJJ.com. I type it in. I go get the instructions so I can see what's going on. I watch what the steps are and I know what the steps are. Now, at least now, when I'm at those positions, I'm stuck at the decision to action range. And that's when we drill, right? If I know the steps, but I'm unable to perform them in live action, that's what I have to drill. How to drill. Now to answer that second question, my how to drills need to have a progression. At the progression that we did, just how we did in all the videos, is I should be able to make plastic the movements that are required for the position that we're in, right? So you can watch me do all those drills, and you did watch me do it from that side control. I didn't have a partner, right? I was just moving my body, right? I got a fundamental understanding of how to move my body around. On the second ones, I need a partner, but I need my partner to give me the stimulus that I need, right? So when I start to get those controls, if I want to drill the position of just getting a side control, try to get a perfect side control, and you kind of heard me say it throughout these tapes, but maybe as you start to watch them some more, you'll hear it. I ask my partner, go ahead and roll, go ahead and move around, right? Are you getting the predicted controls from the positions that we went over that you thought? If not, adjust your body, figure out how to move to that position, and then recombine that with your drills as you go through. You can stop any of the drills at any given time, elicit some light resistance from your partner to kind of see, do I still have control of this position, or what could you do to get more control? Do you need a little bit more grip? Do you need to pull up a little bit higher on his elbow? Do you need to pull your elbow back further? Those are a lot of options that you have. Awesome. And as it's closing, this has been the fundamental side control. This is bringing you from that zero stripe white belt into an orientation of where we can go from that side control and lead it into further tutorials, and you're learning on how to attack and master side control.